Welcome to the Empowered Flow podcast. I'm Tris Alexandra, holistic clinical nutritionist, women's health and menstrual cycle educator, and mama. Join me and experts in nutrition, fitness, mindset, and holistic healing as we explore conversations to open your mind to a different way of thinking on all things women's health, hormones, periods, cyclical living, and fertility. Whether you're seeking knowledge, inspiration, or a supportive community, you've found your tribe. Let's dive in. In today's episode, I chat with Amanda Trieger from Naturopathic Womancraft on all things menstrual cycle awareness, the inner seasons of our menstrual cycle, feminine leadership, and how our rites of passage impact everything in our lives, from our connection to self, our relationships, and how we mother. Amanda is a woman with a mission to reclaim, reframe, and renew cyclical wisdom for women in business. She is an experienced facilitator, cyclical CEO, feminine leadership speaker, menstrual health naturopathic specialist and advocate, and practitioner mentor. Amanda is based in the beautiful Morpeth convent with 3 lively children, surrounded by wild birds and her clinic familiars, her beautiful pups, and she has a passion for podcasts and crochet. Amanda's life is a beautiful tapestry of herbal crafting, guest speaking, retreat facilitation, clinical practice, and practitioner mentorship. As a devoted advocate for menstrual and women's health, Amanda's practice, Naturopathic Womancraft, recognizes the menstrual cycle as a vital sign of wellbeing. With over 20 years of experience, she empowers individuals to live in harmony with their natural rhythms, blending clinical naturopathic medicine with traditional wisdoms. This is truly a conversation I want all women to hear, and I would love for you to pass this on to your girlfriends, sisters, friends, and every woman in your life. Before I dive in and chat with Amanda and introduce her, I wanted to share a little story about how we met. So I think it was last year I met Amanda through Mel from the Seed Cycle, and I was instantly drawn to the work she does with practitioners and healers and women in business in incorporating cyclical wisdoms into our modern businesses. And I knew straight away that I really wanted to learn from you, Amanda. I really wanted to deepen my knowledge of the menstrual cycle, of women's health, and how I could, incorporate this into my business and have this whole new way of running my business. And, it's said that the right mentor or guide or whoever you're meant to learn from will come into your life at the right time. And I really felt that with you. And what I came to realize is that up until doing this work with you, my knowledge of women's health and the menstrual cycle and hormones was really all about, the physical. So I knew how our hormones worked across our menstrual cycle. I knew how we could support, our hormones through nutrition and lifestyle practices and supplementation. But I guess what I really discovered and learned from you was so much deeper. And I really began to understand, and I would say, since be able to integrate and embody a more spiritual and energetic side of menstruation, but also be able to tap into my innate inner wisdom as a female and incorporate that in so many areas in my life, like my personal life, my business life. And so it's really helped me to evolve in all of those areas. And it was actually the catalyst for me pivoting my business late last year, because I really wanted to bring more of this work into what I offer women. So I'm sure there's so much we could talk about when it comes to this and the work that you do. And I also think, we were just chatting before, but I think it seems really fitting that we're recording this on winter solstice and the day before a full moon. all of the beautiful seasonal things. So I wanted to start with, sharing with listeners, in your words, what you do and what brought you to doing this work that you do.
And isn't it such a long journey of discovering ourselves along that pathway and all of the beautiful women that have come before me, and that we stand upon their shoulders and that we stand upon this lineage of work that has come through of all of that feminine wisdom that's been held and gathered from so many of our beautiful teachers. So it's been a long journey for me. I've been a naturopath for the past 2 decades and studied through Southern Cross University and went through, as a young girl, knowing that I loved herbs and loved biology and loved all of the things of the earth. and being a bit of a tree-hugging hippie from the country, shifted up to Byron and Lismore and studied at Southern Cross Uni there and went through the Bachelor of Naturopathy and became a doula at the same time and stepped into this very alternative world of reclamation of birth and women's rights and voices and visibility, and started to discover what it looked like to work with women over multiple timeframes. So not just specializing in one specific area. So I've worked for lots of different clinics over my time. I love working in busy, vibrant, functional clinics, and 95% of my clients have always been girls, women, or people that are assigned female at birth. And it's through that lineage and just deep need for more information, because I have a brain that I used to, and I don't know if this is your pattern as well, Tris, but like I'd be super creative and I'd do all the things and I'd be really productive and I'd go, and then all of a sudden the wheels would fall off. Like either I'd get sick or I'd crash and burn, or I'd, go through that exhaustion, fatigue, overwhelm cycle and withdraw and not do the things that I was doing. And then became a mother and such powerful learnings in that matrescence journey of surrendering what isn't me and what does not work, and having to really discover what it was that worked for me. And that was when I went through the shamanic lineage and went through the School of Shamanic Womancraft and began to search out these deeper knowings from womancraft wisdoms that have been held by women for generations and for so many reasons. And if you're interested in looking more into the reasons behind why we have been so disconnected from our lineage and our knowing, I invite you to look into Jane Hardwick Collins' work around her story and the knowing of what has happened to women over time that have held this knowledge and this wisdom, and why it's been sacred and secret in lots of circles. Being able to bring that back into modern day life, into my family, integrating it into my business, integrating it into the work that I've been doing with women around their businesses and their families, and how this flows on in big ripples through the community. We're at a time of change, and solstice is such a beautiful time to reclaim that, because we're releasing the old.
Yeah.
That no longer serves, the menstruality taboos that have been in place, the disconnection from our cyclical rhythms that we have never been taught as children. We haven't been taught this innate rhythm. And I was looking at, stop on a tangent, but I was looking at it was an advertisement for study to improve your child's study and capacity for year 9 to year 12 students. And they were talking about all the things that they were going to teach them in study and language and rhythm. And all of it was masculine. Not one moment of that did they take into consideration that people with female biology are inherently different energetically, through their hormonal reality, through the nutrition that they require. We have a different rhythm, that infradian rhythm. And when we truly learn to work with that and integrate that into everything that we do, the way that we fly at that point. And that's really where, I guess, the gathering together of all of the decades of experience and the wisdom keepers that I've moved through and been mentored with, and the understanding that layers into that, I've seen such a big shift within my family, within my business, within my health and well-being, and really crafting that life that nourishes me, and so excited to see that flowing through. So working with women like you, Tris, is just to see that moving through community of this next level of awareness of I choose how I rhythm my life. I choose how I role model that in my business. And I inspire the other women in my community to be aware and to make those changes. And I can only be so excited for where we're moving to for my children and their generation.
Yeah, for sure. And it feels like there is that ripple of change happening. I think women are starting to, I guess for want of a better word, starting to wake up and realize that there is more. And there is, like, I know for myself, I really didn't know what I was stepping into going into the work with you. I guess I had some idea, but it was like this, I just had this like inner intuitive pull of like, there's something there that I need to know and that I need to learn. And it was really about this like reclamation of like learning all of these wisdoms that have been lost. And for me, I know for me personally, I've had so many times of my life where I felt so disconnected from self and disconnected from my body and from, we're just not taught. We're not taught to understand our bodies as women. We're not taught to understand these innate wisdoms that we have. And that can impact so many different times of our life and phases of our life. And, I know even, and I actually want to talk to you about rites of passage as well, because, even that really pivotal transformative time of like matrescence, so from maiden to mother, whether it's your first child or whether it's subsequent second, third, however many children that you have, can be such a transformational time. And I really learned about the rites of passage and about how previous rites of passage can impact that later on in life as well. So can you share with us a little bit about that, about rites of passage?
Yeah, gosh, rites of passage for me is such an like honoring our rites of passage and our rites of transition is something that our culture has lost touch with. And to the extent that I'd say it's not even that we haven't been taught or that we don't learn or place importance on it. It is actively discouraged from recognizing menstruation or talking about periods until a very recent time, like we're like just yesterday moment ago, where we even put into the research or recognized that maybe women were not tiny men and that perhaps the research is not as relevant. We see these shifts of awareness that are coming in, which is really exciting. But when we come to the rites of passage, and if you're looking at this from any perspective, male, female biology, we have innate times of our lives that we step through these rites of passage. Now, female biology is marked with a lot of these rites of passage also being involved in how our womb creates a rhythm, or whether it's stopping. So we come through menarche, which is the beginning of the first period. Now, that can happen for girls or people that have been assigned female at birth, going through that transition phase anytime between 8 and 16 years is a normal time for the menarche to occur. But I wonder how many people that are listening have actually had a menarche ceremony or a reclamation of their menarche or an honoring of that time, or how, if they even remember, that was discussed in their household. What did they know before their periods came, and what did that teach them about how they were going to be received and prepared for the next stage of life? And we see these rites of passage held in society in the most traditional form, I guess, in a wedding, which just, highlights all the masculinity of like giving away the bride, that's the one thing that we've got lots of ritual around. And there's lots of reclamation around that now, but we celebrate that rite of passage really well.
Yeah.
We prepare, we get ready, we understand that our lives will be forever different after this rite of passage. We craft recognition ceremonies with hens and bucks or high teas beforehand. We come together and we have a ritual that joins that and recognizes this moment in time. And then we have a celebration and an integration back into community of the new version of self. Can you imagine if we did that for our children through these rites of passage, how we would honor the understanding and the preparation for menarche, to understand the rhythm of the body and the fact that we are rhythming for years before we step through that portal, to acknowledge and prepare for pregnancy and preconception, to prepare mum and dad or whoever's carrying the child to be able to really understand what it is that they need to know, because matrescence is not just pregnancy and birth. It is such a big portal of transformation. And
Yeah.
how we honor this rite of passage, whether it's mother of one or many, is important. And our mothers are undernourished, they are under-honored, they are undervalued. And it is through us recognizing this for each other. And this is where I've really shifted away from, you know, as a doula, I would work with clients and they'd talk about baby showers. And I was like, I just don't sit with the whole kitschy making fun of what's coming, because yes, joy, yes, play, but not putting down that role. So instead, we have things that honor and share wisdom, that bring people together, that are fun and joyful and playful, but that really help to prepare mum and nourish mum, or fill the fridge and freezer, or get ready for all of the blessings that are coming, or have an intention that we're bringing forward for her. Such a different recognition of motherhood.
And really honoring the mum, because we do, there's so, in so many ways, it's all about the baby and this new life that's coming in. And of course, that's so beautiful, but we forget the mother that needs to hold and support and nourish and nurture that baby and the rest of her family as well.
And the mother is the heartbeat of the home. You know, there's very little difference in that first couple of years of baby mama. There's this mama Toto, we're the same. Like I would say to my son, and I had 3 kids under 5, like it was big and intense and bustling. And it really taught me about what I valued in my life and what I valued in my career and my business, and how I could, this is pre-internet and ease of connection, how I could bring that into my community and into my family as well. So my children understand cyclical living. They understand seasons. They understand the rhythms of the earth. They understand that at different times of the year we eat different foods. You know, that understanding of cyclical rhythm from a really big perspective. But they also understand that mama's linked with the moon, and that sometimes I have moon times and sometimes I have rest times, and that they have rhythms as well. So there's so much power in being able to integrate this cyclical rhythm into our homes and our businesses.
Yeah, and I love that you bring that into your home and into your family life, and your children know about that, because that was a big part for me as well. You know, I've got a son who's under 3, and then another one on the way, and I don't know whether they're a girl or a boy, but regardless, I wanted to be able to bring that into our lives. And especially, you know, for me, it was also, especially if this next one is a girl, I wanted her to have a different experience of menarche and then of matrescence than I had experienced. And that's not to say, and I don't mean that in any negative light towards my own mother in what she taught me, because she only taught me what she knew too. But it really brought my, you know, awareness into how much I want to, the knowledge that I want to be able to pass down to my children as well.
And that we want there to be generations without menstrual taboo in place. We have been for, and look, when I start doing research about women and women's rights, and women even within financial capacity to make our own decisions, we're looking at like 1988 was the first time that you could get a business loan without your husband giving approval for you to do that. We're not very far away from not being able to make those choices or have that capacity of knowledge. We have come into a growth era of women understanding their rights, having the ability to use their voice and be protected, and having control over their fertility and their awareness. So for so many years, when we have been in a place of having to be appropriate, having to be equivalent, to be valued, to be able to fit into the world, which, by the way, not designed for us, not designed for the feminine, not designed for women to be easy. It's specifically opposite to what works for us. That we have this reclamation not only of women saying, we are equivalent, yes, actually we are different and we work together. So how you bring that in, how you rhythm your business, how you honor your own cyclical nature. And we see this in places that are really switched on, having like multiple business meetings. So if they're having creative idea sessions, they'll have one at the full moon or 2 weeks earlier and one 2 weeks later, because they know they're going to catch people at different times of their cycle and they're going to get different benefits from that as well.
Mm.
So I would love to see a generation raised where our boys know as much as our girls, know as much as anyone, that we have cyclical rhythms and that the menstrual cycle is actually the fifth vital sign of our life, and the
Yeah.
importance of finding that rhythm with it.
Yeah. And I think we forget as well, being in this work, how much majority of women outside of the work that we do aren't aware of their bodies and their menstrual cycles and their their cyclical rhythms. They just don't have that awareness of it. I mean, I didn't have that awareness of it until I studied, until I learned from you, until you pick up all of these wisdoms along the way. And yeah, it's just, I think the other thing that I see, I guess more from like a clinical practice thing, side of things, is women have so much disconnect from their bodies that it means that they hand their power over to others when it comes to making choices for their health or for, different phases of life, because they just don't have that knowledge and they just don't know how to tap into that inner wisdom in trusting themselves.
Actively has been taken away from them.
Mm.
They've been groomed into that capacity as well, because we are taught that there is an expert out there that has better knowledge than us around science, that has research based. You should eat like this. You should train like this. They've tried all of the things that have been recommended by society or experts that are based on masculine rhythms. And so that disconnection that comes through, or because their pain and discomfort has been so ignored or maligned for so long, that the period is seen as something that's really frustrating or difficult or a burden that we don't like. When we're looking at the statistics, 3 in 5 women hate everything about their period. That is a
That's,
massive proportion of our
yeah.
society that is menstruating on a regular basis, that dislikes and sees no value in their innate cycle, sees no value
Yeah.
in metabolism and their brain function and training, because they don't know how to use it. They don't know how to tap into it. They've actively been told their whole life that what their intention and their intuition, which was probably pretty good when they were young, wasn't relevant, because this is how we should do it. This is how you should study. This is how you should set a habit. I talked to someone the other day and they said, right, habit setting, 21 days. And I said, cool. Any chance that research has been done on women? Because I'm telling you now, you need at least a cycle, a whole cycle of menstruation, winter, ovulation, summer. Like, how do we experience all aspects? And that actually that habit setting may not be exactly the same habit that I do every day, that 5 kilometer.
Yes.
Movement is my habit. And one day it's a 5K walk, and the next day it's maybe a gentle stroll down to the shops, because I'm in my transition phase. So we have been so underserved in being supported in the connection of self. It's been undervalued in community. It's been seen as being selfish or being needy or being hysterical. There are so many ways that we've been put into these little boxes of, when we're having our needs not met, that's somehow a problem of the female rhythm.
Yeah. We do, I say we as in society in general, really pathologizes the menstrual cycle. It's always, oh, there's an issue with it. Let's put a pill or a band-aid on it so that we can get rid of it because we don't need it. You don't need to have your period. You don't need to have your cycle. Why would you want that when you could just use this form of contraception and not worry about it? And then no wonder why women feel really uncomfortable having their period and having their menstrual cycle, because
Been told the whole time that it's unnecessary and there is no value in it.
mm,
I can't imagine a men's cycle that regularly sent them into rhythms that offered different supports for their libido, that moved them through different stages, that was essential to bone health, to brain health, to hormonal rhythms, to thyroid function, to all of the aspects of creativity and physical health. I cannot imagine us instantly just introducing a pill that says, sure, let's just turn that system off.
mm. Doesn't make a
Have
lot of
long-term
sense.
effects on your fertility. We'll just turn that system off. So it is so deeply ingrained in our psyche that it is complicated to look at our medical system even as something that can help, because I think people are reaching to the medical system, and we see this now with beautiful women using their voices around menopause and menopause transition and the dysfunction that is currently in place in our society around listening to women, and the fact that it is the most highly medicated support for menopause transition is an antidepressant. So it is back at like, let's send them off to the funny farm for hysteria medication, and you know, it I can't even think of the word. It belittles the process, the rite of passage, the hormonal shift and complete body, mind, brain, spirit, cellular transformation that we go through during this menopause transition. And that is just silent and unsupported and ignored. And there are so many supports now that are being spoken about and shared because women are sharing their stories, just like they're sharing their stories around birth and the reclamation of birth process, just like they're sharing their stories about this next rite of passage. We're coming into a decade of women who speak and who choose not to stay silent and have the ability to make that other choice.
Yeah, I really love that. And I've noticed that as well. There's just more women speaking out about these phases of life, whether it be, like our pregnancy and labor and birth experience, or whether it be that portal into menopause. And it's so good to see more women speaking out about it instead of staying silent and going through those phases like it's something to be feared, or that it's all about, these negative, physical things that we experience in those times of life, but really understanding it from a deeper, transformative portal and phase of life.
And so many of these portals bring up fear. It is a transition from one role to another, from one aspect of yourself to another. That phase of becoming mother, becoming young woman, becoming menopause, at whatever aspect or age that happens, because it isn't an age-based transformation. I'm working with women in clinic that have gone through their menopause state in their early 30s, depending on the supports that they need. But the becoming Marga, the time phase of that gathering of wisdom, is sometimes at a different time than our menopause transition comes through. So how we choose to honor these rites of passage and the rituals and rhythms that we claim are so important, because it's up to women to be making these changes and to be honoring these rites of passage, because unfortunately our society will not do it.
Yeah, I know for me.
Push.
Yeah, for sure. I know for me, even like, going into my second pregnancy and being really close to labor and birth now for my second, it's been such a different experience to my first. Just I guess the 3-year time period between my last childbirth and becoming a mother and then to this one has been such a time of doing a lot of inner work and really building that awareness of myself. And it's really I've really noticed the shift in like how I've prepared for this labor and birth compared to last time. Like last time it was all about, yes, I really wanted to know the physical thing and I wanted to understand the physical, how our body works and how labor and birth and everything works. And this time it's been so much more about, I guess, celebrating and honoring that time of transition, letting go of parts of me that no longer serve me and parts of me that I are no longer needed, and then stepping into something completely new and something completely different. And I feel like my preparation for this birth and this next child has been so much different. It's really hard to explain, but it's just it's just been on a completely different level, I think.
And I think when you have that understanding that there is more than just the physical, there is more about these moments of transformation. And when we look at women, and birth is a beautiful way to experience this, and as a doula, holding that space for other women and watching them go through that rite of passage of preparation, of readiness, of deciding which fear they're going to sink into or what they're going to let go of and move through, of watching those patterns come up, because they do, the patterns of how we have dealt with trouble and dealt with challenge and dealt with difficulty come up. And what comes through with that birth is such a beautiful learning. And I have the belief that we get the birth that we need. Perhaps not the birth that we planned for, and perhaps not the birth that we ideally would have chosen for ourselves, but that the birth that we need for whatever lesson that brings along for us, for our child, for mothering that child, because they have that agreement as well of coming through, and it's part of their birth story as well, not only ours, which is this intertwining of stories, which is so beautiful. But being present and watching women work through the physical realm, I've seen 10, 11-pound babies born easily, effortlessly. Well, maybe not effortlessly, but without the intensity and overwhelm that you would expect from Hollywood style, kind of like, oh my God, the big babies. Because mum knows intuitively how to move with her body. She trusts her body. She moves in a way that she's supported, and she has a really good team around her that she feels safe and supported and secure within, so that we can sink into that deep brain, that mammalian brain that takes over, and let go of all of that logical, beautiful stuff that we research, and then let it go. And being physically present, letting other people hold the others.
Yeah, and I think for me, being able to, prior to going into labor, being able to really tap into that inner wisdom and trust myself and trust my body and trust that, and deepen that connection with myself, is something that I hadn't ever done before, and I hadn't done prior to last birth. And I think it's something that because we don't have these like rites of passage, or we don't share this wisdom and this knowledge, we don't gather all of that before we go into birth.
And we've had generations that have been disconnected from their choices around as well. So
very much so.
This is women reclaiming their wisdom and reclaiming this process and reclaiming this birth portal. And we are ideally would be initiated into this with our menarche, with our understanding of, our traditional rites of passage. They're not just a moment, they are 12 months over the process. So the work that I do with my children, we go over a 12-month to 18-month process of the rite of passage finishes with the celebration, and perhaps menarche occurs along the way of that rite of passage. It might get us ready for the next stage of the spiral of recognition and honoring, but the work starts earlier. The understanding of self, the understanding of the role that we hold within our world, and the understanding of how we rhythm within the bigger picture, rather than it being about, I think the child is such an ego-based driven love, and I love our teenagers, but they are a work in progress, and they are a recognition of this stage of transformation. But part of that rite of passage that we've done with my son was that we recognized the 12 focuses that we had. So could he cook a meal for the family? Could he do a mitzvah or a good deed for the community? Did he hold down a job of paid employment of some description, whatever that looks like for him? There was so many that we went through. We had books that we listed. There was a bit of a research deep dive of something, a topic that he was going to be really passionate about. And so it's helping him discover skills to step into the next version of self. And my hubby works a lot more with the masculine aspect, which is great balance.
Love that.
For us. And the feminine aspect is, very similar understanding of self and being, but the layering in of cyclical rhythms and how to work, study, eat, live, train. My girls are going to have, well, I only have one daughter. I have lots of friends with girls.
Yeah.
That's going to flow through. And I need that through all of my community around me. I want this to be normal. And that's working with beautiful practitioners and therapists and circle facilitators and teachers and whoever's doing this work. It's getting that wisdom out, because we have a challenge as part of the rite of passage. Now, that can be a physical challenge or a standing up and presenting, or an emotional kind of challenge, but we learn how to work through difficulty. We learn how to challenge ourselves, move past where we thought we could go, and celebrate when we land on the other side. That's the birth portal. Prepare through a challenge, celebrate on the other side. But there's not many women that have been taught to lean into discomfort, lean into challenge, or to lean into pain. And birth is hard work. It's physiological movement. It's opening and expansion. And it's not a pain-free process.
Yeah. I heard Fiona Hallinan, I don't know if you know who she is, midwife, and she was on a podcast recently, and she was talking about birth, and she said it was something along the lines of, are you going to step into the fire, or are you going to dance around the edges? And if you step into the fire, what tools are you going to have to take with you? And it was like something that really stuck with me. And I'm like, it's on my mind for this, for this birth, for sure.
It does bring up that ring of fire picture, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We're stepping into fire, yes. Yeah.
But we're taught so much different when it comes to labor and birth. We're taught so much different. We're taught that, if you have pain, we need to take that away from you. Or if you have, we want to,
there's something wrong.
Yeah, something wrong, or that someone else needs to come in and save you and help you do it for you.
And you look at all of our media around us, you look at all of our bedtime stories that we were told as young girls about being rescued and pulled out. My girls have all got like Power to the Princess books. I'm like, rewrite all of those fairy tales, thanks. Nobody needs rescuing here. We rescue ourselves. It is this expert cult that has been slowly moving towards reclamation, because we used to be knocked out at birth and babies pulled out, and there was twilight births and all sorts of things happened along this, running away from what is perceived to be difficult or painful. My births, and most of the women who work with me, I think, would share the same story. Their birth was the most powerful moment of their lives. What they went through, the self-discovery, the movement, the reclamation of I did it, that moment post-birth when the portals are all open still and the baby's there and mum, whatever way she has birthed her baby, it's not about how that's happened. It's this moment of being autonomous in making your choices, being respected in that process, and being able to be present with the choices that you're making. And that hasn't been everyone's experience. I'd say it's probably not the majority of women's experience, unless they are actively seeking this out for advocacy for themselves. Because again, we're in a society that doesn't teach that. It's not basic knowledge of what we learn. We learn other things about how to be checked for blood pressure and how we are going to fit into the hospital's guidelines, and how the system works, and what the medications are, and what the like all of the to-do list. Not the woman, the advocate, the warrior that steps into that birth portal, that's running the marathon, that is in for a long, expansive, intense process. I don't see how those two things within the medical realm support each other. So we have to go in with bigger advocacy and stronger boundaries and more self-awareness. And I see so much of this coming out through our podcasts and through these conversations and through girls that have understood their menstrual cycle so deeply that they get to choose who touches them, when they touched, and how that process works, and that they're not being manipulated by the system anymore.
I love that. So powerful. I want to shift gears a little bit, because I do also have, I know a lot of the work that you do is with practitioners and healers and women in business. And I've got, quite a few friends who are in, female businesses as well, which I absolutely love. And I want to talk about how we can incorporate cyclical rhythms into our businesses, and what that really means, and what that means for us and our businesses and our lives.
Gosh, what that means is a world run by abundant, healthy, happy women and happy, healthy families, and life that flows. Most of the women that I work with are professionals, because they either run their own businesses or they work in a health-based business. The reason that I love working with health professionals or therapists or art therapists, work with counselors, women that run their businesses in a cyclical rhythm, women that plan with the cycles, that have consciousness over their own awareness and how they plan. Because, we go into, with our trainings, we go into not only understanding our own menstrual rhythm, which is our primary driver of what am I going to be good at in my business on this day, and how can I plan that so that it's not taking me by surprise. I don't know if anyone else gets really surprised when their premenstrual syndrome kicks in, and all of a sudden they can't do all the things that they thought that they were going to tick off their list this week.
Or they feel, I had this conversation with a friend a little while ago, and it's like that pre-period luteal phase existential crisis, where we suddenly, the inner critic pops up, and we suddenly start questioning everything, and all the things that are not working in our lives start to pop up, and in our business and things like that happen too. So building awareness around that is so helpful.
Yeah, not being taken by surprise, I think, is such a powerful tool to go, and it offers generosity and kindness to you, because if you have consciousness that, of course, the day before your cycle begins, you're not going to be as productive or as logical or as processing or as switched on or as ready to say yes to a major speaking event or a promotion or something you have to be out in public to do, that there are times of your rhythm that you are going to be better at some aspects of your business or your life and your mothering as well, and some aspects that you are going to need a little bit more support. You might need to outsource things a little bit more heavily that week. You might need to put your self-care in place. And I think this is probably the first place that I would start, is not only do you have self-care, because everyone's big on self-care and meditation and doing all the things. What week is that in for you? Is it in your menstrual care week? Is it the week before your cycle begins? What are you doing at ovulation? What are you doing in your pre-luteal, your pre-ovulation phase of that follicular energy building? What you need for self-care is going to be really different. So how are you rhythming that in your business? The reason I love working with these thought leaders that are coming in is because we see this flow through businesses in another level, and we see productivity go up. We see new programs being launched. I think we came back from retreat last year, and one of the practitioners who came had said, "Oh, I'm really exhausted and fatigued and burnout. I'm disconnected. I'm not loving what I'm doing right now. And I know so many people are, women particularly, we have held it together. We have held all the things together for all of the years that people are feeling that lack, that disconnect, that not being supported by the rhythms that are around them, and them having to hold it all." And we came out of retreat, and the shift within 2 weeks, she'd added 2 extra days to clinic and filled them. She'd launched a new program. She was just,
Oh, wow.
"Here I am. I'm back again. Sorry, I was just not really me then." And I was so disconnected from everything that filled up her own cup that there was nothing left to give. And I think that's so much of the time we're seeing women either coming in at that fatigue, exhaustion, overwhelm place of, I'm doing all the things I've been told. All my business coaches are saying, do these things. All of my thought leaders are doing all these things, but it doesn't work for me. And I keep beating myself up because I keep coming to this point that everything falls to pieces. And when they understand the rhythms, and when they understand how to create a business that really supports their well-being, everything flows. And that, one of the things I guess that I notice with women in business is that we lack the resources.
Yeah.
We lack the handouts, we lack the Canva slides, we lack the quick, easy resources that I can just pop together a promotion or a production, or get on and share some information that is in alignment with my philosophy, is feminine in its framework, because so much of us keep our information like here and here, rather than a functional framework of like, in winter I do this, in spring I do this, in summer. And so layering in that can get it out of your brain and into a function and a framework for you that actually feels like you, rather than when you feel like you're trying to like fit yourself into.
Yeah. And it allows you, I think, as well, to listen into what is and isn't working in your business. And I know for me, like, I came to you at a time where I wasn't necessarily fatigued or burnt out, but I was like, there's something missing and something not working, and something like it. I couldn't put my finger on it at the time. And it was, yeah, like I said, it was like really the catalyst for me shifting, not only pivoting my business and the women, slightly pivoting, I was always in women's health, but pivoting the types of clients and women that I worked with, but really pivoting the way that I ran my business, which has made such an impact, like you said, like before, I was so much in the masculine of the routine and the structure. And yes, that can be helpful in business in the sense of like getting things done. But when you're so heavily into that, you become so disconnected from the feminine and from listening into what your intuition and is really trying to tell you is and isn't working in your business. And that was a really big shift for me.
And 95% of our thought process is subconscious, like such a small amount that's logical conscious processing. It is the community aspect of being connected with other women in business that recognize the solstice and go, great, it's solstice full moon. I bet all these things are happening. Like, wow. So having a community that rhythms, that supports each other, that leans in and nourishes and inspires other feminine leadership is so powerful. And I love that aspect. When we connect in every week, we're doing training sessions for seasonal planning once a quarter. So we do that with the seasonal dates, not necessarily with the, logically January, February, March quarter, which helpful financially, but not any relevant. So our major planning session happens in winter. We dream in where we're going for the next 12 months. And so many of the women that come in that have that vision of laying down the foundations, and that's through Nourish a Cyclical Business, which goes over a 3-month time frame, or whether they come into a retreat-based immersion, and that one's coming up in September, which will be Hunter Valley, beautiful retreat
Oh,
that we're coming together for feminine leadership and wisdom. You should sneak up with the new baby. Baby's
so
a
nice.
VIP
Yeah.
in circle.
Mhm.
Um, and or whether they're coming in over a 12-month transformational experience of this is the work that I am born to do. Help me shift my business. And we have fortnightly one-on-one sessions and bigger versions of like the programs are delivered for them so that they can step into a puberty and maidenhood support and nourish mothers and daughters, or whether they're moving into matrescence and fertility and birth, and the programs and supports that their clients can just really easily pick up and use, or whether that's through Marga and that reclamation of the menopausal woman and how we inspire our clients and ourselves to move through these processes. So, yeah, I love the way that my business is crafted is really to engage and support connection between the
Mm.
practitioners and the other women who are in the holistic business, and to give them the tools to craft the life that they want in a way that avoids feeling like they're the only one doing it as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that connection piece is really important too, isn't it? I
Mm.
loved coming on retreat. Are we no, this year. This
Yeah,
year.
that was this year.
It's
Seems
like
like
last
so
year,
long
this year.
ago.
It does. But yeah, coming on retreat, you know, and getting to connect with you and other women and sit in circle and not only learn but share stories and wisdoms is just such a powerful thing to do. And that's really another thing like we don't do enough of is women sitting in circles and sharing stories and sharing, you
And
know.
the knowing of what it is to sit in circle. I hadn't
Mm,
had that experience until I was in my mid-30s, and I had to seek it out because
yeah.
it wasn't something that I'd felt comfortable in a lot of the time. Like, yes, mother circles, fine, but women's circles were a different aspect. And I kept coming up against this imposterism of like, who am I to run a women's circle?
Mm.
Do I know enough? Maybe I'm not like woo-woo enough. I don't do the woo-woo things. Like, how is that? And what if people ask questions and I don't have all the answers? And this reclamation of understanding that women's circles are such a beautiful place that you can hold an intention and facilitate, but actually the magic is in the women coming together.
Yeah, for sure. And I was the same. I only experienced my first women's circle last year or maybe the year before. And before that had really had never experienced it, but also was really fearful of stepping into it because it was, you know, such an unknown. And I'm like, oh, how do I show up to this? Just show up as you are.
In whatever state you are in, that is the
Yes.
benefit of women's circles. And it
Yeah.
is something that I consistently hold here
Mm.
at the Haven, because we're based now in this beautiful convent in North,
Oh,
which is just like a
yes.
fairy tale. And you've
Yeah.
been down to the convent for retreat, which was beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's connecting community, it's connecting women. We have a monthly session locally that we all gather for a morning tea or a coffee, that women in business can just come and start to recognize the understanding of where we're up to in the earth rhythm, where we're up to in lunar rhythms, and then some information on how do we support each other? How do we
Mm.
really lean in? Which is beautiful. The community, as we grow and as this ripples come out bigger and wider, I just get so excited about Australia being a place of that transformational change. Mm.
Yeah, I love that. I really hope so too. Any last words? Anything else you wanted to share?
I knew that everyone should know this information. So there's lots of free ways to connect with this. If it's not something that you're like, yes, I need to jump in and work with you. The Facebook group that I'm sure Tris can pop up a link to for the
Yeah.
practitioners, there's regular trainings, there's regular free workshops online as well as in person. Um, for me, this is about advocacy for sharing this out far and wide. And if you are someone who's interested in working with a coach or a mentor that really understands this cyclical wisdom and you're ready to take those next steps, jump onto a free call and reach out via the link. I'd love to hear from you, because the more women that we have doing this work and the more abundant flow that we have coming through, the bigger those ripples of change will be. So love to everyone and anyone who's creating those changes as well.
Yeah, I love that. And I will share links to like your website and your socials and where women and people can reach out to you and book a chat with you or connect with you, or get some of those resources that you have. Your website's naturopathicwomancraft.com.au.
Yeah, perfect. And I think the next event that we've got coming up is all around designing retreat life. So how do we, as healers, as women that hold this wisdom, how do we offer that on? And whether your retreat style trainings are, a weekend immersion, whether they're a week away in Bali, whether they're a couple of hours on a workshop, there's ways to integrate this retreat style training that really creates transformational shifts for our clients. So there's a free version if you want to come along to the Mistress class and deep dive, and then there's a paid week for training that we're moving into. We've just launched all of the circle cards. So
beautiful.
Sale on the website. It's very exciting to have my own set of cards that I'm like out.
Yes.
Beautiful colors. And
talk to us about the cards, because people are like, cards, what cards are you talking about?
Sorry, we're in the last minutes. So the circle cards are designed, there's a foundation kit. So if you're just interested in learning the basics and playing with them, I use them with the kids, and I've got them printed out as well. But they're designed to really integrate cyclical rhythm into the work that you do. So you don't have to have come and done workshops with me. You can buy the set of cards and start playing with them at home or using them in your circles. It has an online program that comes along with it. So there's components of teaching along the different phases and the different seasonal wisdoms. So foundational kit you can purchase. Pre-orders are open now because the first set will arrive July. So there's 20 sets coming. And there's foundational kit, and there's a facilitator set. And the facilitator set's like 51 base cards and 31 foundation cards. Is a lot. So I can't cut it down because we need cervical fluids and we need the seasonal rhythms and we need the cycles, and there's so many layers to our rhythms that if you're looking to craft different types of workshops or different ways that you're explaining this information to clients or within the retreats that you're running, that's got the bigger set. That it also has a discount code to join the Retreat Architect training as well, which is pretty cool.
Amazing. Beautiful. Well, I will link all of that information in the show notes so you can reach out to Amanda. But thank you so much for sharing your beautiful wisdoms and passing down all of that knowledge to us. And I really am really excited to see these ripples of change really come through all of our communities.
And so it may be. Beautiful. Thanks, Tris. Really love being on.
Thanks for joining us on the Empowered Flow podcast. If you enjoyed today's conversation, I'd love you to share it with a friend and take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. Your support means the world and fuels our mission to empower women everywhere. You can also reach out to me on Instagram at Tris Alexandra Nutrition. Sending big love. I'll catch you in the next episode.